Thank you for taking the time to join today's webinar. We have put together this presentation to help assist you with the administration and invigilation of the Maths and English Skills exams for summer 2023. The aim of this presentation is to update you and assist in answering some of the questions around our exam administration guidance. We hope this will be of benefit to you and demonstrates why these steps are so important for your candidates, ensuring that their exam papers are received, marked and processed without delay. We start by discussing the purpose of these requirements and the potential consequences. We design these requirements to ensure that exams adhere to the required conditions, that we can ensure candidates' work is authenticated, and so we can prevent malpractice. By not adhering to these requirements, this can lead to exams not being marked and late results. For example, learners using the wrong colour pen. The scanning machine used will not recognise red pen or pencil, so this would result in a potential delay or the non-issue of results. On the right-hand side, you will see the potential consequences of not meeting these requirements. For example, question papers that aren't held securely, the exam register isn't completed, or papers returned and not returned on time. This could result in missing, invalidated, or delayed results. Here is a reminder of the schedule for the Maths and English Skills exams in June 2023. You will see that the certificate in Maths is a multiple choice exam and the English reading and writing is a written exam. With multiple choice exams, we will supply non-personalised question papers and multiple choice answer sheets with the candidate's details already pre-printed. Candidates who pass the exam will receive a full certificate. In reference to the English reading and writing exam, the exam paper will be personalised with the candidate's details. It's only stage 2 and 3 that will be supplied with a source document. And learners who pass the reading and writing and speaking and listening exam will receive a full certificate. We have broken this presentation into 4 segments: preparing for the exam, during the exam, invigilation certificates and exam stationery, and the packaging and returning of exam papers. So, we will now look at the first segment, which is preparing for the exam. Once you receive the exam materials, please check against the accompanying delivery note that you have received everything that you are expecting. If you notice any discrepancies or mismatches, you will need to report this immediately to the Overseas Examinations Commission, also known as OEC. The contact details are on the screen. Please remember that the sealed examination bags must not be opened and need to be securely stored until the day of the exam. There should be no need to open the sealed bags at any point, as the information will be available on the delivery note. It is essential that you are prepared and ready for the exam, and here are some prompts to assist you. Invigilators are to check that the examination room is ready before allowing candidates to enter. Please allow candidates to enter the room at least 10 minutes before the start time to enable them to complete the learner documentation. Before the exam starts, the invigilator must explain the rules of the exams to the candidates. The sealed examination bags are only to be opened in front of the candidates, and it's the invigilator's responsibility for checking that the candidates have the correct examination paper and materials. Please note, any candidates who turn up on the day of the examination without a booking will not have an examination paper and should not be permitted to sit the exam. Absent candidate examination papers cannot be used for other candidates. Should this happen, then the candidate's exam paper will not be marked. It is the invigilator's responsibility to ensure the candidate fills in and signs the front of the examination paper. This slide shows two important links, and we ask that all invigilators and exams officers read this guidance and understand it. The first link is for the invigilator and refers to the examination guidance as set out by JCQ. The second link is for centres to ensure that the correct invigilation process is adhered to and what to do if there is a suspected malpractice. Please take time out to read through the guidance. As you prepare for the exam, it is the role of the invigilators and centre exam secretaries to ensure the following. The sealed examination bags are stored securely. The use of a dictionary and or thesaurus is allowed. Candidates must use a pen with black or blue ink only. Ensure candidates do not use pencils or gel pens. The pre-printed barcodes on the front of the examination paper must not be defaced, as this may result in the paper being voided. As mentioned previously, question papers for absent candidates must not be given to any other candidate unless discussed as part of an emergency QP process. Invigilators must ensure that the correct examination paper, for example the question papers and source documents, are given to the correct candidate. Candidates must only write their responses on the personalised examination paper for English and on the multiple choice answer sheets for maths. Any answers written on the source documents or question papers will not be marked. For English examinations, candidates must fill in and sign the front page of the examination paper, as failure to do so may result in the paper not being marked. Additional candidate barcode labels will not be provided. Therefore, in the case of using a non-personalised reading and writing exam paper, it is essential that the candidate clearly completes all sections on the front page. We have covered the section which was preparing for the exam, so we are now moving on to the section which covers what is expected during the exam. On this slide, you will see the 12 steps to ensuring that the exam follows the correct regulations. Some of these may have already been covered and may be referenced again throughout the presentation. Please refer back to this document for quick reference. I will go through these now for you. Number 1. Start the exam at the scheduled time. A clock must be visible to candidates. A notice must be displayed that states quiet, exam in progress. Books, notes and scrap paper is not allowed. A seating plan must be prepared ahead of time. The minimum distance between tables should be 4 feet. Essential information must be made clearly visible to all candidates. Invigilators must be able to establish the identity of all candidates, and the invigilator must be satisfied that the exam room is ready before allowing any candidates to enter. Candidates are allowed to enter the room at least 10 minutes before the start of the exam. Prior to the exam, the invigilator must inform the candidates of the rules that apply during the examination. And the sealed exam bags are only to be opened in front of the candidates. I would like to bring to your attention some further guidance and regulations that need to be adhered to. Only one invigilator for every 30 candidates or fewer per room. Should there only be one invigilator, they must be able to summon assistance without leaving the exam room. Should there be any misconduct or irregularities, such as cheating and collusion, a written report of misconduct must be submitted to City and Guilds. If the exam is less than 2 hours long, candidates are not allowed to enter or leave the exam room before half the exam time has passed. If the exam is more than 2 hours long, no candidate can enter 1 hour after the start of the exam, and no candidate can leave the room during the first hour. Please note, no extra time is to be allocated. Candidates can request additional paper if needed during the exam. This must be lined paper and should be supplied by the centre. Used additional paper is to be clearly signed with the candidate name and centre number on each page, and then stapled to the completed examination paper at the end of the exam. The number of additional pages should be clearly indicated on the front of the exam paper. Towards the end of the exam, please ensure that learners have a clear warning of when the exam is due to finish. Candidates will need a 15-minute warning, followed by a 5-minute warning, and then informed when the end of the exam is and to stop writing. Once the exam has finished, please ensure the next process is followed. All exam papers are collected. Check all the candidates' work is securely attached to the answer booklet. Check all the present candidates have signed the English exam paper. Ensure all examination materials, including any blank papers, are collected before the candidates leave the room. And ensure that on the Invigilator Certificate, tick showing candidates present matches the number of completed exam papers and names. The next section will explain the exam stationery in more detail, what this looks like and how to complete it. The Invigilation Certificate, also known as an IC, is an important part of the exam process, and it is essential that this is completed to show if candidates were present or absent at the exam. The amount of completed exam papers should match with the amount of present candidates on the IC. You will see a copy of this on the next slide. The Invigilation Certificates must be signed by the Invigilator, and the school exams secretary must also sign and check the Invigilation Certificate too. When it comes to the Invigilation Certificate, it is important that you only use pre-printed examination stationery provided. Do not make any manual amendments or annotations on the pre-printed data, and do not handwrite any additional candidates, as their examination paper will not be processed. On this screen, you'll see an example of a completed Invigilation Certificate for a written paper. The IC, as already mentioned, is the candidate's attendance register. The Invigilation Certificate will have the information pre-populated, such as the centre name and number, qualification title and codes, exam dates and times. The form will also be pre-populated with the candidates' names and enrolment numbers. The invigilator will need to tick if the candidate is present or absent against the candidate's name. And you'll also see there is a section for the invigilator and the examination secretary to sign the form. This is a copy of an IC for a multiple choice paper. You will find all the same information as the previous IC, but this will look slightly different in appearance. Again, the most important thing to notice is that the candidates will need to be marked as present or absent, along with signatures from the invigilator and exam secretary. Here are a few examples of errors on the Invigilation Certificate, all of which can cause delays in the candidate's exam papers being processed. The first example shows that a candidate does not have a present or absent tick against their name. This will cause a significant delay with the processing of the exam paper, as further confirmation will be required to confirm attendance. Example 2. There is no signature on the IC. It is a requirement that this is signed by the invigilator. And example 3. There is an anomaly that we will need to be investigated, as we must ensure we can reconcile each booking that has been made. We have mentioned the Invigilation Certificate on a few slides now, as this is an important part of the exam administration process. So please remember, the Invigilation Certificate is signed and dated by the invigilator and centre exam secretary. All forms must be completed in block capitals using black or blue ink. Do not cross over the lines on the boxes. Ensure each candidate's line has a present or absent mark indicated by a tick. Do not amend the pre-printed information by crossing this out. Do not use a red pen or pencil when completing the IC. Under no circumstances should you cross out a candidate's name and replace it with another candidate. And please do not photocopy the multiple choice answer booklets. We will now look at Section 4, the packaging and return of exam papers and materials. It is the invigilator and centre's responsibility to ensure all details required on exam documents are completed in full and that the information provided is correct. Incomplete or inaccurate data or incorrectly completed forms will cause a delay in the processing and may affect the issue of the results. The red bullet point shows that no examination papers are to be retained or photocopied by the centre or candidates. It also highlights that the examination documents must be completed correctly and packed in the correct order, which I will go into in more detail shortly. The blue bullet point refers to the packaging and dispatch of the exam materials and will be touched on in the next few slides. One thing to point out at this stage is that there will be no prepaid postage label, and it is the centre's responsibility to ensure the return of the exam materials are tracked via courier to OEC. Once the exam has finished, you will need to put together the completed IC along with the completed exam papers or answer sheets into a grey return bag and seal. Remember, at this stage not to mix any assessments together and use a separate grey return bag. It is important that the grey bags have the centre and assessment details written on the front and the correct pre-printed label attached. Any blank or unused exam papers or answer sheets will need to go into a separate sealed bag clearly marked blank, unused, along with your centre number. There is no pre-printed label for this. Please note, all grey return bags must be sealed and returned within 48 hours. Failure to do so will be subject to a compliance review. This slide gives you a quick snapshot of the process of the package and dispatch of exam materials for the Maths and English exams. I will use the first exam as an example, the Stage 1 Maths. A white copy of the completed IC will be placed together with the multiple choice answer sheets. The answer sheets will be in order of the candidate's name shown on the IC. Place these together into the grey return bag and seal. Attach the correct delivery label and complete the assessment and centre information on the front. Place a pink copy of the IC on top of the grey sealed bag and retain the yellow copy of the IC for your records. Unused answer sheets need to be placed into a separate grey bag and sealed. Write unused blank on the front. For the multiple choice question papers, these can be placed into a bag or envelope of your choice and also returned to OEC for destruction. So, once all your grey bags are sealed, along with a copy of the IC on top of each bag, these can now be returned to the Overseas Examination Commission. Please do not send the exam stationery to any other address other than the OEC. As mentioned before, please ensure that you send the exam materials by courier or track delivery. A prepaid postage label will not be provided. A helpful guide, similar to that shown on the screen, will be sent with the examination materials. This will help guide and support you through the exam process and administration and covers what we have mentioned in today's presentation. On the screen, you will see the process that OEC takes to ensure the exam materials are returned to the UK for scanning. Centres will not send any exam materials to the UK and only to OEC. OEC will reconcile at assessment level, therefore will not open packets and check examination papers. They will update the Jamaica Master Examination Paper Tracker and enter the courier's tracking number accordingly, noting any anomalies. OEC will follow up with the centres who have not returned exam papers or returned in a timely manner and will report to City and Guilds as appropriate. The OEC will follow up with centres where anomalies are found during the marking process by City and Guilds, and centres must respond promptly to queries, otherwise there could be a delay to the release of the results. In reference to the blank unused exam papers, OEC will ensure that the blank examination papers for Maths and English are checked per centre and removed from the completed grey return bag. The unused papers will be retained in country, in an OEC vault for a period of 3 months, or up to successful results release. OEC will ensure the completed exam papers are returned to the correct company in the UK for scanning. As you can see, we use 2 companies, one for multiple choice exams and the other for written exams. So this brings us to the end of the webinar. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's presentation. We hope you found it useful. Please feel free to refer back to this presentation and use the guide sent in the exam materials as reference. Wishing you all a successful exam series. Thank you and goodbye.